Carla, where did the idea for butterflies come from?
Where did it come from? Well, obviously from my head, but it occurred to me that there was a dying race of women who stayed with their partners out of loyalty, because he was good, because he was honourable, and I could see it all dying. Everybody was starting to leap into bed, whether or not. And I remember going to the head of comedy and saying, I want to write about this species of woman which is disappearing, and that's, you know, what prompted me. I also know that people like love stories, and they like love stories which can't ever happen in particular. So all those things, you know, made me think of butterflies.
What was the BBC's reaction when you said you actually wanted to make a series about a woman that was contemplating adultery?
Oh, the head of comedy went pale and nearly fell off his chair. Oh no, love, he said, we can't do that, that's for drama. I said, look, I'm sick of this business of drama being superior to comedy. I said, we've got to get up there with them. So we've got to do stories that are stories. I'll still make you laugh. You know, as miserable as it sounds, I'll make you laugh. I don't think so, Carla. Anyway, I didn't have a flat in London then, so I locked myself in a little Paddington hotel and wrote the first script, and I sent it to him. And he sent me a handwritten note by bike saying, who am I to argue with a butterfly? And that was the beginning. So.
And what particular significance did the title Butterfly have?
I just thought that butterflies flap around with very little time and a lot to do. And they always give you the impression that they don't quite know what they're doing. They're confused. They're not, of course. Nature doesn't play that game. But I just felt that the people in it were all a bit confused and fluttering around trying to find, you know, the truth about themselves. It seemed to fit that way.
And what sort of reaction did you get from the public when the first series went out?
Well, because the first series, it was a little bit slow. I think it was on the fourth script, not series, the fourth show, that suddenly there was a great welcoming by the viewers. And of course we never looked back after that.
So what were the elements of Butterflies that you were particularly happy with?
The elements. I was happy that I wasn't tempted to put them into bed, she and Leonard. It was tempting. I liked the subtlety of it, and I began by using, I suppose you'd call it a bit prosy. The dialogue was a little bit prosy, which I love. And it's very self-indulgent, and they were intelligent people, so they were able to say the most profound things, whereas in most comedies, you know, you're writing about very ordinary people who would not do that. So it was a very self-indulgent thing, and there was much of me in it, in that her dreams and thoughts were often mine. So it was self-indulgent, but it worked. It worked.
I was going to ask you how much of you was there in Ria.
Yes.
Was she one of your most favourite inventions?
No, not really. I mean, I've loved, you know, I love all the bread people. They're delightful, and all the people. I've always had a lovely cast, and I've always been, I won't say satisfied, one is never satisfied, but I've always felt I hadn't wasted my time and that the right people were playing. I suppose, I had a very nice husband whom I divorced, and I had 2 with-it sons, thankfully, and there was that. But I always fall very short of the rest. It wasn't quite like my life, but it was similar. That's the best way to put it. I was not completely writing about myself, but elements of my life went into it. And I didn't actually realise that until the series was finished, and I thought, good God, you know, that was me.
How much of a say did you have in the casting of the series?
I always get the opportunity to have a large say, but I don't often, because I'm not good at casting. I feel sorry for everybody, and everybody who reads, I say, oh yes, she'll be smashing, or he'll be smashing, and they look at me and say, I don't think so, you know. But it's a weird story about Wendy, dear Wendy. I used to watch her in other programmes, and when they said they were having Wendy Craig for Butterflies, I said no, no way, because I just remembered what I saw in the others. And the head of comedy said to me...
What was it you particularly saw?
Well, she had this... her voice was higher pitched than ever she had in Butterflies. I think she used her real voice in Butterflies, and it was always children and husbands and panic and, you know. And I thought, she's not thoughtful enough. meaning not Wendy the person, but the person I'd come to know on television. And they said, well, just meet her and see. And I always remember Wendy came towards me and she said, Carla, I've long waited to get a script like this, to get me out of the morass. And I thought, she's right, she's the one. And of course, she so definitely was the one. She's a fine actress, but apart from that, she's just a lovely, lovely lady.
Is she a very reflective person anyway?
Very, very. She's very thoughtful and very poetic in her own way. She understood butterflies perfectly. She never questioned some of the things that perhaps the producer might. She would always say, but I understand what Carla's doing here, you know. So I value her a great deal.
One of the things that always intrigued me about butterflies was that, you know, given your love of animals, that you had Ben collecting butterflies and sticking them on
I know, yes, but equally I had her hating it. And that was the whole idea, really.
Yes, yes, she did free a butterfly, didn't she?
Yes.
Yes.
And, you know, you can't always write in your particular... I mean, I would never write in cruelty to animals unless I was going to do the opposite and show what can be done. But I really did feel that... And my passion was not quite as extreme as it is now. Remember, we're going back a long time. I hadn't quite opened my sanctuary then. And I wanted him to do a man's thing, you know. I don't think you'd get a woman doing that. And she did often look at them and reminisce about how they were once alive, and I thought that was enough.
You said in one of the episodes you liked to describe people as a human train endlessly travelling along the same line who sometimes want to derail themselves. I thought that was lovely. Is that what... Did you derail yourself when you started your sanctuary? How did that...
No, not really. I never enjoyed the celebrity scene. This is not because I'm modest. I'm not modest at all. I was driving along in one of my 2 cars with, like, the latest... The mobile phone had only just come out, hanging from my ear, and the biggest, blackest wolfhound in the back. Mind you, that I always had wolfhounds. And I suddenly thought, what is all this, you know? I suddenly stopped enjoying being followed about. And I was very lucky to be followed about. I mean, I hadn't been in the business long, but I was very lucky that the 2 things I'd written had worked for me. And I just didn't like the celebrity world, like parties you're expected to go to, and I'm really so antisocial in so many ways that I'm ashamed of myself. I mean, I live here, there's nobody around here except the people who work for me, and I'm really pleased. I'm really happy that I don't have to encounter the human race all the time, because I don't really like them very much. But of course, when I say that, I know there are millions of beautiful, wonderful people. But I think if you know, ask people and ask them, they will say, oh, don't talk to me about it. We don't like each other. I've discovered that. So I wanted to get away from something that seemed a bit tinselly. And so, of course, I had this little dream of a little cottage. And I'd rescued the horses, and I brought them with me instead of paying other people. And it was all going to be very nice and very quiet, and I was going to write forever, thought I. And I ended up in a 44-roomed old manor house because I couldn't get the amount of stables I needed with a little cottage. I'm not sorry, of course. And I like it better, you know. I'm a non-entity here, and I don't have to dress up. I go out in old sweaters and old jeans, and I enjoy that. I never go to the parties I'm invited to, and I get invited, I don't know why either. Perhaps UK Gold are keeping my flag flying because my stuff goes out there. But I get invited to the most extraordinary places, and I think, why are you inviting me? Because I feel out of it now. But apparently I'm not.